Hello, everyone. This is Liz. Welcome to Thursday. Live once again from the Derry Public Library. If you're new, this is I give streaming recommendations since a lot more people are in the house now. Although a lot more people are going outside, but still, I have a vast knowledge of film, and I can recommend everything from a normal movie you can watch with your family to some really out there stuff. So yeah, let's get started today. I'm talking about Hulu and Prime recommendations. So I'm going to start with Hulu. First up is a film from last year called The Peanut Butter Falcon. We actually have the DVD here as well if you'd like to view it that way. Very sweet little movie starring Dakota Johnson and Shia LaBeouf. And it's about but they're not the main characters. It's actually about a young man who has Down syndrome. He lives in a group home. He wants to be a wrestler, and he escapes his group home to be like, to heck with this, I'm going to live my dreams. He encounters Shia LaBeouf's character, and Shia LaBeouf, who's kind of like a transient person who's floating down the river. It's got kind of a Adventures of Huck Finn vibe. Agrees, like, okay, I'll get you to this wrestling camp type of place. It's a really sweet film. I love the fact that the main actor is actually someone with Down syndrome. They didn't do something horrible like put someone in makeup. And actually, at the core of this movie, the main character is not someone who's babied. He's not infantilized. He's someone who asserts his own agency and is like, he may have a disability, but he's also a human being who has his own wants and his own dreams. And I think it's very good for a film to portray people with disabilities that way, not as sort of charity cases or people to be pitied, but as humans. Up next, oh wow, we're going like direct opposite from a sweet, heartwarming film to a biopic about probably one of the most infamous TV events of all time, and that is the film Christine, starring Rebecca Hall. So, if you're unfamiliar with who this is about, in the I believe 1976 or 78, there was a local reporter named Christine Chubbuck. She worked at a local station in Florida who took her own life on the air. No one has ever seen the footage since it happened. I believe the person who owned the station has the reel and either has it locked away so no one ever sees it or just destroyed it. But she's been a figure of fascination for a lot of people because there's really not much that we knew about her and what led her to that. So this is a movie that tries to piece together what it could have been, and the idea of like she might have been depressed, she might have had anxiety issues and stuff that just back then was not handled the way it was now. And it's incredibly sympathetic to her, and Rebecca Hall gives a great performance. It is definitely not a movie for everybody, but I think at the very least for the main actress's performance, it's worth a look. Now a very timely disaster movie. It is a film called It's a Disaster, and so full transparency, one of the reasons I'm recommending this is the son of one of my parents' friends is in this, Blaze Miller. So it's basically about a bunch of couples who get together for brunch, and then they get word that, oh god, the world might be ending. So it's like, oh, we're all stuck together. So hilarity and drama ensue. It's a fun movie. I kind of was like, during the big lockdown phase, I'm like, maybe I should recommend this, and I'm like, nah, there might be some families who were kind of getting sick of each other already. So, I mean, when I was in high school, my family was stuck inside during a big bad snowstorm, and that was only 2 days, and we were sick of each other. So, I relate. Finally, we're going down to Cultville with Phase 4. I'm actually very happy Hulu has kicked up some of its movie selections lately, including a beloved, it's going to sound weird, beloved movie about ants. So it's a sci-fi film. I believe this is 1974. How can I describe this? Ants are mutating, and apparently there is a people need to evolve to be one with the ants. It needs to be seen to be believed, and it also has a final sequence which is incredibly trippy. And it's one of those movies where I'm like, I don't think this could be made today, or if it was, it would be one of those independently released on Prime things. Like, it's one of like, this got made by a major studio in the 1970s. Geez, why wasn't I alive at that time? But no, Phase 4 is ambitious, it is flawed, but it is a really interesting sci-fi film. And it's basically them, the movie Them with the big giant ants, if they weren't complete antagonists. But it's really interesting, and again, it's one where like if you haven't seen this, you should check it out because again, it is a seeing is believing type of film. Now on to Prime. Holy crud, you guys! I'm actually recommending a kids movie. Even though I really probably haven't seen a kids movie in like 20 years. No, it's not true. I neonate in college, so 10 years. No, grad school, yeah, 10 years. But How to Train Your Dragon is on Prime, and I think those How to Train Your Dragon movies are absolutely wonderful. I think they're great for, I would say, all ages. They also are appealing to any gender. It's not like this is just for boys or just for girls. I actually like in terms of the action and in leadership roles, both the boy characters and girl characters get to take part in that, which like, that's a good thing for kids to see. Also, the animation is beautiful. I am kind of notoriously not huge on CGI animation, and it still has some of the things I criticize it for in that, like, sometimes the character designs all look the same, but the world that they've created with this is really pretty, and they put a lot of work into it, and yeah, some of the characters look the same, but I would say overall, at least with the main characters, they have done so much to make each person look very different, have their own personality in their look. And of course, Toothless the Dragon is adorable. So yeah, highly recommend How to Train Your Dragon. I think they are incredibly underappreciated kids movies. Up next, kind of a kids movie, maybe. It's based on a cartoon, but I'm going to recommend Robert Altman's Popeye. This was apparently pretty maligned when it came out and considered to be kind of a step down for Robert Altman, but there is a lot of craft to this movie that I really appreciate. And I was never big on Popeye, so I'm not really one way or another on it, but I mean, Robin Williams is perfect for this role. Like, the type of performer Williams is, you can't imagine anyone better. Shelley Duvall looks like olive oil just walked off the comics page. And the color and the set design in this is so great. Like, there is a scene where a character is supposed to be seeing red for about 5 seconds. And again, this wasn't done with CGI. This wasn't done with visual effects. Robert Altman and his production staff actually made sure the background, all the actors, all the clothes were red for this shot. And like, to me, that is a dedication to getting the spirit and the feel of this cartoon right that I have to appreciate. So, and again, music's pretty good too. I think this is overall a good movie. It's one of those I watch and I don't quite understand where the animosity for it comes from. Up next, a documentary. If you're a musical fan, like me, you will probably enjoy this. It's a documentary called Every Little Step, and it's about a bunch of actors who want to be in a chorus line. If you're not familiar with a chorus line, it is a very stripped-down musical. There's not a lot of set pieces or set changes. It's pretty much a line of people who come and they sing about their life. Each character has like a solo type of thing. So, it's easy musical to put on if you're in high school. Just saying. But yeah, it's really interesting, and it's kind of meta because the whole crux of a chorus line is it's about people auditioning to be in a chorus line. So we're now seeing a documentary which is about people auditioning to be in a chorus line, which is about people auditioning to be in a chorus line. But still, good documentary, especially if you love musicals. Up next, a little, I don't know if I'd say hidden gem, but probably one of the most interesting films I've seen recently. Definitely one of the most interesting horror experiments I've seen recently. So it's called Antrim, the Deadliest Movie Ever Made. So this is a film where it purports to be about a movie made in 1977 about a sister and her brother who try to open up like a door to the underworld and rescue their dog's soul. And the whole backstory they've built around this movie is about how every time it's been shown in theaters, theaters caught fire, people have been trampled, and there's this idea that this film can kill. And, you actually see this in movies, urban legends regarding films, usually not that they'll kill people, but it's kind of like The Ring. meets the urban legends that, there's certain things on the film strips of certain movies. Again, it's an interesting experiment, and so you have the actual film, and it's bookended with not real people, obviously, but purported scholars and historians and researchers talking about the movie. This might be one of my most niche recommendations ever, but if you're into horror or you're into a very high concept film, mockumentary, this might be up your alley. And finally, I'm going to recommend a piece of history. So, if you're old enough to remember the 1980s, or if you are like me and just have a very deep history in nuclear panic films made in the 1980s, you might remember the film The Day After. So, this was a television film that was about a hypothetical nuclear attack on Kansas and what it would do. It's a fairly bleak movie. The idea of, basically the end of that movie, it's we survived, but at what cost? And it was so powerful, even Ronald Reagan kind of walked back his aggression towards the USSR. And, hey, example of how a movie can actually change the world. So, in the United States, The Day After is pretty well known for that, and also a lot of kids in the 80s saw and were scared, had the daylight scared out of them. However, what isn't known is that in 1984, Britain made its own version, which is Threads. And it somehow manages to be even more bleak than The Day After. It's the same. It's basically the same thing where it focuses on normal people who some die during the strike, some survive. At the end of the day, how it happens doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that just life on Earth as it is gone, and infrastructure is collapsed, and the people who are alive are barely surviving. It is one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. It was like, oh, good lord. Again, I've seen The Day After. I've seen a lot of sad stuff, but this was something else. But it's one, I think it's worth it, and look at it in the context of 1983, 1984, when tensions with the United States and the USSR were really, really high. So, I mean, Day After, it's easy to look at from a United States standpoint, but think about it from the perspective of a British person who's watching this, and they're like, well, we're allied with the United States, but we're also kind of closer to the USSR. How would we be affected? And it may seem nihilistic, but again, you have to remember at the time, this was not made to be happy. This was made to be a warning. So again, if you want a piece of history or a very big time capsule film, highly recommend Threads. But just, again, have some puppy videos for you after. Just on hand, on deck. Alrighty, have a good day, and I will see you not tomorrow, but I will have a special broadcast on Saturday. I will see you Saturday.